What the hell is this?
Oh, I wonder what this does.
White, hot pain radiates outward from the drug patch on your neck. It's malignant mutagens burning agony.
Well,
every nerve.
this is going to be a lot more dark compared to last time.
DNA of your body.
Hey everyone, Wumbo here, back with another review. I just want to put a little short update in front of this before we get started. First, I'm pretty much glad that we're back to this format of videos. Obviously, these videos will take a little bit more time compared to typical podcast episode, but I'm really glad that I'm back to this sort of style of videos. And hopefully I can make some sort of schedule out of it. I'm just trying to find some games that I want to review in the future, and yeah, hopefully you guys can give me some recommendations in the comments section below. I already have something planned for Halloween, thanks to Stall, for a little suggestion he made on my last video. Short updates aside, what am I reviewing today? Well, today we're going to be looking at another game from another Sega console, the Sega CD. Well, actually, this isn't a typical Sega CD. This is the JVC XI. Now, what the hell is this thing? Well, it's essentially a more well-built version of the Sega CD-X. Essentially a Sega CD plus a Sega Genesis all in one, and you could even add a Sega 32X to this thing if you have one of those laying around for some weird reason. If you want more information on this thing, there is a wonderful video by the gaming historian, which can be found here, right next to my head for some reason. Now, there are two games that I bought back when I bought the JVC XI about a year ago, I think. It was Sonic CD and Rise of the Dragon. Now, Sonic CD I will most likely cover at a future date. Pretty much have something planned for Sonic in a couple months from now, so maybe this could be there. Who knows? So for the time being, we're going to be looking at Rise of the Dragon. Now, I was aware about this game thanks to a few underrated Sega CD lists on YouTube and a couple other websites. I think this was also featured on an episode of GameSack, so that's where I first heard about this thing. I also knew it had a striking resemblance to another game on the system, but we'll get into that once we get into that. So, as per usual, let's get into the history of the game. Rise of the Dragon was originally developed by Dynamics, which is a subdivision of Sierra, the company known for King's Quest, Space Quest, and Leisure Suit Larry, for computers running DOS and Mac computers in 1990. It was ported to the Amiga in 1991 and finally released on a home console for the Sega CD in 1993. The Sega CD port has some significant differences compared to its computer counterparts. First, this port was not developed by Dynamics, even though it has their name written all over it, but it was developed by Game Arts. The graphics have more of a darker tint to it because of the limited color palette, the soundtrack is different, and the most obvious difference is being that there's a full voice cast instead of text. And the voice acting is actually pretty solid for the time, and there's a lot of dialogue since this is a point-and-click adventure game. Now let's get into the actual story of the game, and, well, compared to the last game I reviewed, it's pretty dang big. I'm just gonna put this here. We're gonna need it. The game is set in Los Angeles in the year 2053. In the future, it seems like everyone went to the Ridley Scott School of Building shit because everything looks like it's straight out of the movie Blade Runner, which isn't a problem. I like the game's art style, but I'll get more into that later. The main plot of the story is that you're an ex-cop and private investigator named William Blade Hunter. Wait, this is the second game I reviewed where the main character is named Blade, the last game being Sky Target, so what's next, Blade 2 for the Xbox? Anyways, the story starts out where the mayor of LA is tasking Blade to figure out who is responsible for horribly disfiguring and killing these people, including the mayor's rebellious daughter Chandra, which is shown when you start up the game. The mayor suggests that you go to the Pleasure Dome first to find out some information, so you grab all your things, including your clothes, and set off. By there, you'll find some interesting characters that will help you find some clues leading to who's producing the drugs and what their intentions are for it. We meet Chandra's friend, the Jake, who leads us to a man named Chin who supposedly supplied the drug. By then we see a lot more interesting characters like Blade's girlfriend Karen, the mayor of LA, an old guy in an abandoned building who gives out some great words of wisdom.
Now I must render you what aid I can. Here are ancient talismans. of protection and good fortune to carry on your person at all times. First, tome of ancient wisdom, given to me by most aged and honorable father. Second, stone of life, blessed by Lama. And third, if all else fails, bulletproof vest Kevlar, made by DuPont. Also, pleased to have this fortune cookie.
Some random dude named Casey Jones who provides nothing in the story aside from a quick joke interview.
Sure, man. Me and the Jake, we're like real tight. I can't quite remember what he looks like, though. Oh, well, ask around. If he's here, I'm sure you'll run into him eventually.
And many, many, many other people. The point is that you talk to a lot of people in the game, and there's voiceover almost all the time. The point of this is to figure out some clues on the situation, and there may not just be one way to solve the problem, which I'll get into shortly. After going to Chin's apartment, we figure out that he's dead thanks to some weird eye patch looking guy that we find out later is named Snake, no, not that one, and we're given more clues on who Chin is and who is he working for. After recovering some files and watching a vidphone message, we learn that Chin was working for the Chinese mob to sell this MTZ drug, and the drug that they happen to be selling can literally kill people and make them look like snakes, or dragons in this case. Now, why the hell is this happening? Well, thanks to some information from the old guy, apparently they're just testing out this new drug for the sake of a prophecy of Behemoth. Now, there was this warlord slash magician named Behemoth who lived around 5,000 or 6,000 years ago, and thanks to the power of pure evil, he changed himself into a dragon. Yeah, makes perfect sense. And the Chinese mob wants to sort of resurrect Behemoth by releasing this MTZ drug into the water supply and transform everyone into dragons. Damn, that's brutal. Anyways, after going on a night out of town with your girlfriend, because you promised to, you get some information on the mob members' houses and bug their vidphones. After a really crappy wiretapping puzzle, we get some information on where the mob is making the MTZ drug. So after blowing up the drug manufacturer area, we talk to our girlfriend and get some more information on the drug, and well, we get a pretty cool animation showing it. Then we talk to the mayor and get a pretty sweet gun, and we get some more knowledge on where the mob's main headquarters is. On the night of the resurrection, Karen gets kidnapped and the Jake, out of all people, help us out by telling where they're polluting the water. After we save his ass in this oddly made 2D shooter that comes out of nowhere, you run into the headquarters and save your girlfriend. And then, out of nowhere, the boss of the Chinese mob changes himself into the quote-unquote ultimate being by making himself into a dragon, and then he tries to kill you. After a pathetic boss battle, you kill the boss dragon whatever thing and stop the mob's plans from killing everyone. Overall, the story isn't too complicated, but it is presented really well thanks to the full voice cast. That makes the story seem more interesting. I like it for what it is, but the ending seems a little rushed because of the forced boss battle that makes the story's pacing seem a little bad in the end. But overall, I like the story for what it is. Now as for gameplay, well, it's a point-and-click adventure game. There really isn't too much to say. All you need to do is point-and-click on where you need to go, what items you need, what you need to say in a certain conversation, and solving puzzles. The A button is to open your inventory menu and save points. The B button has Blade comment on what he's picking up, which could lead to some pretty funny lines, honestly.
A woman posing as a man, posing as a woman, plays cards with two other Pleasure Dome patrons. Vidphone remote control. Laziness is a way of life, even in the 21st century.
And the C button uses items. One complaint I have with the game though is that you're using a D-pad to control a cursor on screen, when this was clearly designed to have a mouse instead of a D-pad. So moving around isn't as precise as it needs to be sometimes, but it's only a minor problem unless it's a certain puzzle that I'll get into later. One thing that makes the game stand out a bit is that there's an in-game clock that can trigger certain story events, which is usually showing the development of the Chinese mob's events and how far they are with their plans. A time limit is one thing, but you can also move forward time, which is pretty dang useful, especially in the later part of the game if you know what you're doing. The game gives you 4 in-game days to complete the game, but of course there's a save feature that can help with saving time and your place in the game. But if you know what you're doing, or if you're using a guide, then you only really need to use 2 out of the 4 days the game gives you. Another thing I like is how the game handles conversations. There's actually a few ways to solve certain puzzles in this game, and there's no right way of doing things. One of the best examples is when you talk to the receptionist in the mob's main building. Yes, there's a receptionist there, and you could cheese your way into the security room. You could smooth talk to her, pretend to be some sort of repairman, or just spray some weird crap in her face and knock her out. This isn't the only conversation that does that in the game, and I love it for that. It can also be a little annoying, especially in your first playthrough, since if you say the wrong thing, you might not progress in the game. One of the best examples of this is when you meet the Jake for the first time, and if you say the wrong thing or if you piss him off, then he won't talk to you, halting all progression. So it's either restarting the game or skipping to the next day and hope you say the right thing. So I highly advise saving before something major happens in the game. Now as for puzzles, some of them can be a little mind-bending, but totally worth it. Some of them are kind of out there, and you may need a guide to figure it out. One in particular though, is extremely precise in what you need to do. It's this puzzle where you have to put these fuses in a vid phone to hack your way into one of the Chinese mob's houses, and it's very annoying. Not only do you need to find out where each parts go, but it needs to be absolutely pixel perfect in where you need to put your cursor. And since you're using a D-pad and not a mouse, it's pretty crap. If it's just slightly to the left or right, boom, you're shocked to death. Back to the main menu, which is pretty annoying. But that's really the only puzzle where I can think of as bad. Other than that, the puzzles are okay for what they are. Okay. I know I should probably get this out of the way right now, and some people watching this probably already knew this, but yes, this game has a lot of similarities with Hideo Kojima's Snatcher.
The only real similarities are that they both came out a year apart from each other, they both had a port to the Sega CD, they both have a cyberpunk look and futuristic setting, and they're both point-and-click adventure games. In terms of story, as far as I'm aware, both of them have completely different stories with a similar protagonist. A cop or detective. Also, sweet Jesus, I'm not paying that much for a physical copy. Rise of the Dragon is much cheaper compared to Snatcher. Oh, and I forgot to mention that there's some weird shooting parts.
Both Snatcher and Rise of the Dragon have these shooting gallery-esque parts of the game, but Rise of the Dragon has another style of gameplay. Yeah, this is the worst part of the game for me.
The manual calls these parts arcade portions in the game. I think the shooting gallery part is okay, but the side-scroller part comes out of nowhere unless you read the manual, and it's kinda crap. Moving and jumping feels pretty stiff, it's impossible to dodge some bullets flying by you, and it just doesn't fit with the rest of the game. Like I said, this comes out of nowhere, so yeah, I don't really like this part of the game. But luckily the side-scroller parts only happen twice in the game, including the final boss. The final boss itself is nothing to write home about. You know, Bahuma was written off as some sort of ultimate being, but honestly this is a very easy boss battle. Just mash the shoot button and you win, nothing special. So overall, I like the point and click parts of the game, just the arcade segments just seem kinda tacked on. Presentation-wise, it's pretty solid with some nice dark graphics for the Sega CD, even though having the screen kinda cropped out is a little annoying, especially if you're playing this on an HD TV. Also, having a full voice cast actually helps with the game's presentation. In case you didn't know, voice acting in games, or any acting in video games for that matter, had a very bad rap on sucking in the 90s.
Megan, this isn't gonna work. You're not scaring me. Wait. What are you doing? No! No! Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life.
Obviously, over the years, there's been higher standards for voice acting, thanks to games like Metal Gear Solid. So for 1993, the voice acting is pretty damn good and still holds up to this day. The only kind of hokey part I could find is when the Chinese mob has this obvious fake Chinese accent. But it's not that distracting. Going into more of the graphics, they kind of remind me of a comic book, especially when it comes to the cutscenes, which I think adds to the game's art designs. Like I said before, the game borrows a lot from the movie Blade Runner, and it definitely makes the game look nice by having some nice backgrounds. As for the music, I like it a lot actually. I've never really heard the original soundtrack to the PC version, but the Sega CD version has some really nice music even though there's not really that many songs in the actual game. There's a few tracks that are nothing but percussion like drums and bongos, and it actually works with the game. But my favorite track has to be the game's main theme. It's a mix of sort of industrial music with some synth pianos. It really gets you excited to play the game when it's going by the game's intro.
So overall, I would have to say if you have a Sega CD, I would definitely recommend getting this game.
It isn't perfect, with using a D-pad to control cursor can be a little clunky sometimes. One or two of the puzzles in the game are a little out there, and the side-scrolling parts of the game should really not be there in the first place. The game itself is pretty cheap and not that long, only about 2 or 3 hours if you know what you're doing. So yeah, I enjoyed this game for the most part. It isn't perfect, but it is something worth playing, especially for its price point or if you're into the Sega CD in general.
Once again, thank you everyone for watching. If you have any suggestions for me to fix these videos or improve on these videos in any way, shape, or form, or if you have any games that you want me to review in the future, please put it in the comment section below or on the side or wherever the fuck it is nowadays. And I will definitely consider it. Thank you guys for watching and stay beautiful.